training as well. Now, I hope you enjoy the Learning Lab. Now, I'm of course happy to stop and take questions at any time. I'm going to be hitting you with lots of information, so please feel free to either unmute and just shout at me at any point of time, or you can stick something in the chat box and that should pop up, and I'll be able to pick that up as I go along. So first of all, just a quick overview of what I'm going to speak about today. I'm going to start with the first educational segment of the lab, and this is really focused around looking at what the pressures of COVID has done to place difficulty on surgical training, and how we're seeing surgical training change as a result of this. Now, I must say that a lot of that is related to things here in the UK, but I'm sure a lot of that difficulty is also translated overseas. I'm then going to move on to an introduction of LapAR and give you an overview of the simulator, its main functionality, and of course the package options that we offer with that. Now, whilst there's a lot of very cool technology underpinning the LapAR, there is a huge amount of functionality in the software, and more specifically the web application, which you'll see drives our connected learning. So we're going to spend some really good time working through this element of the platform and show you how LapAR is really geared for the future of surgical training, not only now in the COVID world, but in the post-COVID world. And then to finish off, we're actually going to return back to an educational element, and we're going to give a real-time example of how LapAR is already being used to combat the new demands on surgical training during COVID-19. So in terms of, to start off from an educational standpoint, I'm sure we've all thought about the impact that COVID could have on surgical training, but I felt that now would be a good time to take a step back and really review the current literature on this subject, and take stock of what will be, we feel, a major issue for medical educators globally, both now and in the future. So during COVID-19, we quite rightly, as healthcare providers, have focused our services on provision, on saving lives of those suffering with COVID. And of course, the issue we found as a result of this has been published across the evidence base. And I think this evidence that we're seeing now is going to become more and more prolonged every day that the pandemic goes on, and we're focusing our services primarily on the fight against COVID-19. And so really, what does that result in terms of the landscape of surgical training looking like both now and in the future? Well, as you can see from this slide, there's really three major elements to consider here. The first is the impact COVID has had on the traditional, what we call on-the-job training, that sort of in-theatre training with cancellation of elective and non-emergency surgery, resulting in the day-to-day training case for residents and surgical registrars not taking place. Now, whilst the effect that this can have on the element of training is mainly isolated to the acute pandemic itself, that there are longer-term repercussions which we'll look at as we go along. In the short term, these effects mean that residents are not able to get the necessary in-surgery, in-theatre training experience to maintain and progress their skills. And the second element that we're seeing as a result of COVID is the extremely important out-of-theatre training, so our structured courses and simulation centres, and the fact that COVID-19 is really impacting on this as well. We can see here from the top right, and the second excerpt, that the literature is showing us that courses and educational events are being postponed until further notice. That's primarily here in the UK, but again, as I say, I'm sure elsewhere. And anecdotally, we're hearing from our customers that when our training centres and sim centres do reopen, that will be with major restrictions, limiting the number of people that are able to train at one time. And finally, we must also consider the impact of redeployment on surgical skills. So with the majority of residents or trainees being moved away from carrying out operations to support their critical care and medical colleagues, the trainees are not being afforded the opportunity to scrub for emergency cases and therefore keep their skills at baseline. So as well, you can imagine, these quite necessary measures that have been taken to help tackle COVID in the acute phase will have a potentially profound effect on surgical training. And the various bodies for surgical education and training across the globe, including those in the UK and the USA, are already releasing statements to drive home the level of impact they feel this could have. Now, as we've seen, surgical trainees will have a significantly reduced number of caseloads due to the non-emergency surgery being cancelled, and their redeployment compounds this further with residents being unable to scrub for the emergency lists. So these changes will not only cause what we call skills fade, but actually effectively a complete stop in operating, see an immediate decay in skill, meaning that residents are really becoming de-skilled very quickly. So some have commented that the backlog of cases that sort of being created due to this scenario could represent a great training opportunity for residents to catch up with the lost cases. However, we know that really this backlog is growing at such a pace and to such a volume that many feel that when the non-emergency surgery recommences, that it will be the more senior surgeons that will be working on this, and as such, these won't be training opportunities for the trainees. Now, regardless of what the training opportunities may well be for residents and registrars when we do get going again, we know that the measures that are going to be there to ease them back into theatre will still limit the amount of operating that they can do. And so really we view this as our responsibility as the simulation providers to provide a platform that allows residents to not only maintain their skills and prevent that skills fade I've already mentioned, but allow them to safely reskill as they are returning to theatre and providing surgical care. So that's the background to where we stand with surgical training currently. And don't worry, the screen hasn't malfunctioned. That is supposed to be black. I'm going to play a video for you in a moment. And really, what's the solution to this? Well, we see LapAR as a major solution to this problem. And so introducing LapAR, it's the culmination of nearly 2 years of research and development by us here at Innovus Medical. And the project itself has been funded by the NHS. Now, the reason the NHS has funded the development was that they realized, even before COVID, that we really do need to make significant changes to the way that we deliver surgical education and training. And so they tasked us here at Innovus with developing a surgical simulation platform that was focused on improving access to high quality, high fidelity simulation for really good quality and really large scale preoperative training and warm-up. Now, I think to get a really good feel for the need we're solving here with LapAR, a quick idea of what the output of that project would be via a video is the best way to get you suited to this. So I'm going to play a video here. Hopefully it projects. Please put comments in if you can't hear it or see it. Just a note, so I've just paused my videos. I'm getting a few bandwidth issues, so hopefully that's not affecting you guys your end, and I'll hopefully come back to the video function once we're through the presentation and the screen sharing. So hopefully I've given you a really good, very much a whistle-stop tour to LapAR, and has given you a little bit of an idea of what it does. But really that video is there to give you an idea of the problems that we see we're solving with this technology. And those really are threefold. So that's the three words you can see at the bottom of each of our slides. So accessibility being one. We know that traditionally our traditional high fidelity systems are often very large and bulky and confined to surgical simulation centres. Affordability is important for us here in the UK, and we know elsewhere. And as we'll maybe touch on later, we certainly solved that. And then functionality being one, and we know that VR is very popular in healthcare simulation, but as clinicians and surgeons ourselves, we also understand the importance of making sure that those haptics, that feel of the tissues and the instruments in your hand is highly realistic and as close to real life as we can. And hopefully you saw very quickly on that video that we've gone about solving that final issue in a pretty innovative way, utilizing soft tissue models and instruments. And I'll come back onto that momentarily. One of the things I wanted to talk about here really is that accessibility play. And as you can see here on the screen, I wanted to highlight that by showing that we have both an institutional and a take-home model. As you can see here, that the take-home model is your basic box trainer, but still delivering everything you've just seen on screen. And that's able to work with a standard off-the-shelf laptop. And then to the right-hand side on the screen here, you can see an example of the institutional system, a more traditional trolley system, but with a few unique elements. So, of course, the system there is fully adjustable in its height so that we're promoting good surgeon ergonomics. But what you can also do is convert that trolley system into a tabletop setup. So that allows you to take the screen and clamp it to a table, put the box trainer on top of that table, and actually place the trolley element, the base unit, underneath the table. And that was actually a spec requirement from the NHS funders due to the issues we have with space, both in universities and hospitals here in the UK. And we know that space is a premium elsewhere. So hopefully that slide gives you an idea of the fact that we've got two elements of hardware, take-home and institutional. But I just wanted to share some screenshots of the actual simulations themselves, as I appreciate that when you first see this technology, and actually I'll give a story here. We showed this to a surgeon here in the UK, having explained that we're using medical models and digital overlays and it's augmented reality. And we showed him that video and said, well, Elliot, that's all well and good, but that's just a virtual reality simulator. So hopefully I can explain a little bit more about the difference in what we're doing here. So on the left of the screen right now, you can see an example of our LapAR model. And you can see here that the instrument is in screen, and that's actually holding on to the soft tissue model element of this simulation. So you can see there that you're using a real instrument, you're getting a real feel for tissue tension and tissue planes. But then to the top left, you can see the digital overlay. So that's our digital environment, which provides an extremely immersive and very realistic environment for operating. And again, on the right-hand side, another example, this is one of our gynae modules, so a vaginal vault closure task. And the central element here, again, is a soft tissue model. So it gives that real feel of tissue and tissue tensions. And surrounding that is the digital environment, so the pelvic anatomy. And again, another thing to say here is that not only is LapAR using augmented reality, so the combination of real field tissues and a real digital environment, but we're also using some really clever computer vision technology, and that computer vision technology allows us to do a few things. One of those is tracking the instruments, and as you're going to see when I show you the web application element of this technology, providing a really rich data source for tracking and feeding back on surgical performance. But the computer vision also allows us to action on-screen buttons, which you would have seen a very brief example of in that last video. So that allows us to train surgeons in the cognitive elements of the procedure, as well as the physical skills. So hopefully that does give you a feel for the technology in terms of the packages we have, the fact that they're really delivered on what look like basic box trainers, but provide a technology and an experience which is so much more. I appreciate that there's probably quite a lot of information I've flooded you with there. So I'd be happy to pause and take any questions or queries, or go back and clear anything up. If anyone has any queries at this stage, please do unmute and give me a shout, and then I'll move on if there's no queries at this time. No, sounds like everyone's pretty happy. Okay, well, I'm just going to show another video then. And the next video I'm going to show you is an example less of the problems we're solving and what the technology does from a physical standpoint, but more around how LapAR really provides this concept of connected surgical training, which, as I mentioned, and with the nature of this presentation around COVID, really helps solve the issue with the fact that we're not able to gather as much for training. So I'm going to play that for you now.
LapAR is the platform for connected surgical training, promoting collaborative education for better patient care. With a full suite of modules, all surgical specialties, and a take-home version that allows training without boundaries. Simple to set up. And with our distance learning app, trainers can guide learning outcomes from anywhere in the world. Haptic feedback is generated by medical models and real instruments. And performance tracking shows progression and guides further training needs. Record live training events and receive written time-stamped feedback. Download performance data and add it to your portfolio. LapAR, connected training for better patient care.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause there because we've got a couple of questions in the chat there. So the first one from Jane. So thank you, Jane, for that. The question, if others can't see it, is: does the system incorporate a HoloLens virtual view? So thanks for that, Jane. That's a great question, and the answer is no. And this is one of the innovative elements of this platform. So traditionally, when we're thinking about VR or AR, that is generally requiring not only either a HoloLens or a different VR headset, but often requires extremely high-powered gaming computers to run all of those graphics. So actually, the view that you're seeing when we're performing the surgery and performing the simulation is streamed directly onto screen. So actually, if I come back a few slides, for the institutional system, that's being streamed directly onto the screen you see on the trolley on the right-hand side, and the computer is actually built inside the trolley system. So you don't need a computer, you don't need any virtual headsets, and so this makes it actually much more comfortable to use, but again, much more realistic to real life, because as we know, when we're operating in real life, we're streaming our 3D procedure on a 2D screen. So that's how that works for the institutional version. And to the point of the take-home version, again, it's the same scenario. No need for a headset. We stream directly through the laptop that it's attached to. And also, we've had some great feedback this week in that we've been using the systems with our first users here in the UK. And for anyone that doesn't know the UK healthcare system, the computers that you get in the NHS are ancient and archaic and can barely load Word or email. And I'm pleased to say that actually the AR element of this system is working with the standardized PCs and systems that we have in the NHS. So to reiterate, no headsets. They work with relatively low spec computers. We do have a minimum spec, which I'm happy to share with anyone that would like to be to gain more information on that. Again, there's another question here. So thank you very much for these guys, and do keep them coming throughout. Is there a module related to cardiovascular surgery? The answer to that is right now, no. I'll touch on, in a couple of slides from now, I'll touch on the modules that we have already. At the moment, they are focused on general surgery, gynecology surgery, and generic non-surgical or non-specialty specific stuff. So we utilize the LapAR tasks, which is the UK's version of FLS. The next pipeline specialty is urology, and of course cardiovascular surgery is also there. And I'll talk about how scalable this platform is for you as the end users. And in fact, I'll talk about that now. When we add in the future new modules, so for the cardiovascular modules, for example, there will not be a charge for a new module. You pay your fee, and we'll touch on the fees later on and put that in the Q&A at the end. But as long as you're paying your annual fee, when a new module becomes available, you do not have to pay to access it. And actually, all you need to do is make sure that you buy or cool down the medical model that you're operating on. So in this case, this would be the lap Coley model or the vaginal vault model, and you just ask for that to be sent to you to perform whichever procedure it is. So I'm not sure if that's come across particularly clearly, but I'll circle back around a bit later on. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share, and I'm going to come out and show you another page. So hopefully that's projecting okay. Olivia, please let me know in the chat or pipe up if that's not working. So I mentioned there, guys, that the LapAR is augmented reality, and it's driving that augmented reality either off a laptop or the computer that is built into the LapAR trolley. And actually what we have here is two very distinct pieces of software. We have the software that allows you to see the AR image and stream the AR image, and that is tracking the instruments. And then we have what we call our web app, or our online training portal, which is what I'm going to show you here. And this is where it starts becoming really, really exciting. So this application here is entirely online. So it's entirely web-based, which means that you can access this from anywhere. You do not have to be on the simulator to be able to access it. And what that truly does is it allows a fully connected and very versatile training experience. And it's the web app here that I'm going to show you, which is where all of the data that we're collecting when we're performing the surgeries and the simulations is collected and aggregated and worked on. So there's an important thing to note here that you can look at this platform as the trainer, so the proctor delivering the training, or the trainee. And I would like to look at it from the trainer, so the person that is delivering the training and driving the training. So that, in this case, would be Ross Davis. So that would be the lead trainer here. And this is Ross's landing page when you log in. And as I mentioned, you can log in anywhere that you've got an internet connection. And once you have logged in, on the landing page, Ross can actually see his own statistics for his own training, which sit down the right-hand side here. But very importantly, we make it available such that when you buy the LapAR Pro, you have the function to connect with others. And that comes back again to this idea of connected surgical training. And here you can see connections. So these are Ross's connections that he has in the platform. Not only can you see individual connections here, but there is also the ability to go to groups, and you can create groups so that you could group people by their year of training, or by a company that they're in, or by various training programs. So the beauty of connections is it allows us to see how someone else's training is going on. So if you remember the animated explainer that we've just seen, there's the example of the resident at the hospital doing the training with their consultant on the LapAR Pro, and they've learned lots of good things, and then they want to go home and carry on their training. And so in that scenario, they're going to keep training on their take-home system, and it's going to be creating a load of training data and performance data that their consultant or trainer would like to see. And so in this scenario, Ross, as the trainer, wants to go and see how one of his trainees is doing. So he wants to go and see how Jordan is getting on, and he can click on his name. And then, as you can see here, this shows us the performance data and the performance metrics for Jordan for the platform. Now, one of the questions was, are there any cardiovascular related tasks? And my answer, of course, was no. And I'll use this time before I go through the statistics to show you the different tasks that we do have. So on the statistics page, and this is how you would view your statistics if it was yourself as the trainee, you can get an overview of what modules we already have. So there are 4 general surgery modules at launch. We already have 6 gynecology modules, including a full total laparoscopic hysterectomy. And then you can see here on the right, LapAR. And LapAR is the UK version of FLS. So this is basic instrument handling from tubal ligation, some precision cutting, and then all the way through to suturing. And this is agnostic to specialty. So this could be used for gynecology or general surgery training. One thing to mention is the way the platform is set up is we are able to integrate other countries or other people's or societies' training curricula into this platform. So, for example, if SAGES wanted us to add FLS into this platform, then we can add the FLS modules and they would appear here. And for the future, as I mentioned, as urology modules are added or as cardiovascular modules are added, you would see those sitting here on the stats page. So I'm just going to come again then and say, as the trainer, as Ross Davis, I want to go and look at how my trainees are getting on. And here is the statistics page for that trainee. You can see here that it's showing all procedures, but we can look at just appendicectomy, for example. In this case, the trainee has done 2 procedures with a total of 5 minutes of training, or we can go back to all procedures for an overview of all the stats. Now, our platform at the moment allows us to track 6 key performance metrics. So that's completion time, i.e. how long is it taking me to perform these surgeries? And here you can see an average score, and that's compared to the average score for everyone in the platform. As time goes on and we have more users for this globally, please note that this was launched in July of this year. So as we gain more users, we will give people the option to compare not only to the global average, but much more distinct averages. So averages for various years of training will be able to be reviewed. And we know when we're looking at scores that a mean or average score is useful, but we also know it's important to show progression over time and show a trend. So we allow you to go between average scores and trend over time for all procedures. Then we have a couple of metrics which are really our performance metrics. So how well are we actually doing the operation? So that's smoothness, as we see here, distance traveled, and acceleration. These are all very important metrics around how well we're handling the instruments, how safely we're operating. And of course, we know that they're also related to the OSAT scoring system, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Then we have another safety metric, which for me is extremely important, which is time in view. We know that we want the instruments to be on screen for as long as possible because time off screen can increase the risk of causing injury, and so we can track that. And then finally, we can show whether or not we're left or right hand dominating for a procedure, which again is very important when we're giving feedback on how to operate. Now, for those interested in research, we know that we can take this data, which is currently aggregated in these graphs here, which is not that useful to manipulate. So we allow you to export the data to CSV or Excel file so that you can go back and you can manipulate the data for any local research you wish. But you can also print this data as a PDF or download as a PDF and utilize that as a certificate. So that's a very quick overview of the data you can see. Again, I just want to hammer home how important it is and how useful the function is that I am here looking at the data of someone that I am connected with. So I do not have to be in the same room or the same state or even the same country, and I can see how someone's training is progressing. The next important question is, well, how do we guide training and how do we make sure that the people are doing the things that we want them to? And that comes into the task management bar here. So you see we can do multiple procedures, so appendicectomies, we can do lap choles, But when I'm connected with someone and I want to make sure that they're doing a certain number of procedures over time, this is where we do that in this task management platform. So we can set a task to allocate. So in this case, it may be an appendectomy. We can choose how many it would be. So 10. We can select a user. So we may want to select Jake in this scenario, and we can hit a deadline date of a couple of weeks and then hit create task. And that's going to drop that task down into here set for Jake. So the great thing about this is that you can, over time, see how many people, how many tasks the person that you've set has done. So for the trainee at the other end with their simulator, they will get a notification or an alert saying that you have been set a task. And then you will go away and do your tasks on your local software, your local platform. And each time that that person does a task, it will count it here. So 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and then completed. When it's completed, it will turn green, and you'll see all the tasks are in green. The incomplete ones will remain red. The power of this task management is not only guiding people's training, but if you imagine you are a consultant or a senior surgeon who has many trainees and you've set them lots and lots of tasks, it'd be very difficult to go into their statistics page and try and vet out the tasks they've done. Whereas here you can see, okay, this person has completed the task I've asked for. This person's a long way behind. I can give them a nudge. So it's a really useful platform for making sure that we're guiding the training in the right way. So that's a quick overview of how not only tasks and guide training, but also we see how people's objective skills are progressing. But one thing we mustn't forget is that as a distance learning platform, we mustn't lose the importance of the subjective feedback. So that's the expert surgeon reviewing live game footage, having the ability to not only review that, but provide feedback in a time-stamped manner. And that's where we have the video review function. So in the other software application, before you operate, you have the chance to select to record a video. It won't automatically record every single task because, of course, we'd end up with thousands and thousands of hours of video that people may not need or want. So you have selected to record a video, that will get sent up here in the web app. And then you can press play and you can re-watch what you've done. So if you're the training surgeon yourself, you're able to go back and look through the video. But however, if you would like more expert-led feedback, what you can then do is send a feedback invitation. You could either send a group of people, or you can send that feedback invitation to an individual, and you would hit the invite button, and that would show that the invitation has gone successfully. And that would appear on the other person's end here in the alert section. So there'd be video review invitations that have come in here. And for example, if I'm the senior surgeon and I've got a video review invitation, I'm going to click view there. And hopefully this has got a video that will load. I apologize if it doesn't. Let me just click on that. There we go. So that there may be a bit of a bandwidth lag there, but what you're going to see here is this video will now start playing. And I, as the video reviewer, the senior surgeon, may want to start typing. So the minute I start typing, so bring left hand in, you can see here that as soon as I've started typing, it has paused the video and it allows me to carry on writing my comment, and I can add that comment into the feed. So bring left hand in here. And then I can carry on reviewing the video, and I can let that run a bit longer, and we'll let some instruments come into play. Just to while we're watching this video and letting this play, you can see here that this is a real laparoscopic needle holder from one brand, and then there is another laparoscopic needle holder from another brand in the other side. That shows you that this is a direct view of the instruments. These are not digital avatars. They're not the simulated instruments. These are the real instruments holding a real needle and suturing through real field tissue. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of that. But if I want to provide some more feedback, I could say, let go of needle faster. And again, once I've started typing my timestamp feedback, it pauses the video. I can add my comment, and then I can go back to reviewing the video and providing that feedback. And then once that feedback has been delivered, the trainee who has sent it will be able to view that back in their video library with the various comments and feedback that may well sit in that video. So that is a very, very quick whistle-stop tour to the web platform. And we've got a question, 1 second, bear with me all. So there's a great question here. So from Conrad, thank you very much, Conrad. So is there a requirement for trainers to use the system before giving subjective expert feedback? If so, any minimum number per procedure? No, there isn't a requirement for them to use it before giving the expert feedback. So I think what you're getting at there probably is before choosing to record, please, Conrad, correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to unmute and correct me. But that I'm reading into is the question is, before they choose to record and send a video for review, do we have to benchmark their abilities so that the expert is not receiving lots and lots of videos? No, the answer is no. But what we would tend to see, and I'll give you an example of this actually in one of the final slides, is that the trainers, the expert surgeons, will say to their training surgeons, I want you to do 10 of this, 10 of this, 10 of this, and 10 of this. And on the 10th one, I would like you to record it and send that to me for review. So there is no absolute requirement. And we really leave that open to guidance by whoever is delivering the training and running the sessions, because we don't want to pigeonhole people into doing that. Hopefully, yeah, that's answered it. Was that
sorry, I was asking the question from the perspective of just for the trainers to get a feel of what the trainees go through, even if it's only once.
Could you elaborate a little bit more for me? Sorry.
Well, I mean, the trainers would have had experience of many years with live patients, so they have a sense of what the trainees may be undergoing, and they may have used previous simulators. They may have used previous simulators before your system is coming up. So it's just to check whether it might be useful for trainers to get a feel of what the trainees are going through or feeling when they're using the system.
Oh yes, no, I'm with you. Yeah, so that's absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. And yes, we encourage that. So actually, I stopped screen sharing that a bit too early. Let me come back into the web app for you, and hopefully everyone is with myself and Conrad on question there. So I've been showing you this web app from the perspective of the trainer, the expert surgeon, in this case Ross, and he was going in and looking at Jordan's performances and Jordan's videos. But actually what you'll see here is these total procedures and hours, these are actually done by Ross. He's the expert surgeon, so he is also able to operate on the system, because as an administrator or trainer, they will also have full access to the simulator, so they're able to perform the simulations themselves. And as you rightly say, if to give really accurate feedback and written feedback, they do need to understand what the pressures are that the trainees are experiencing. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and the answer is yes. And I think that's also up to the expert surgeon as to how many of each of the procedures they do before they feel comfortable saying, I can give really good feedback on why they may be doing this well or this well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, that's perfect.
No problem. Right, and okay, no further questions at the moment. As I say, please feel free to ask questions anytime. So I'm just going to come back here, back into the presentation. So excellent. So I know that's a lot of information, and I appreciate that, and I do want to make sure we have some time for some full Q&A at the end. But one thing I wanted to do is really give everyone a feel for how is this system already being used. So I thought we'd bring the educational element back in and actually deliver a sort of a case study on the educational power of the system. So I'm going to do that by giving you an overview of how one of our customers is using it. Now, this particular customer is here in the UK and runs regular cadaver-based courses, and those are normally run as a residential course over 2 days at various simulation centres in the United Kingdom. And now here in the UK, we continue to have very tight restrictions. So face-to-face training is just not possible at the moment. And so as a result, our customer decided to replace all of the practical elements of their course, which would usually involve cadaver labs, and they replaced that with the LapAR. So what they found was that this actually added value to the course. And they looked at it and said, well, actually, this adds value to the course regardless of if COVID was here. And I'll talk to you about how that happened. So the way they set this up is they sent out 24 of the take-home AR systems to their delegates in their delegates' homes. Now, one thing I have to mention is to be able to do the connections and the video review and the task setting, you must have an institutional or LapAR Pro system, because that gives you that software functionality. So this customer had the LapAR Pro system in their training center where the consultant trainers could be. And as I say, they sent the take-home systems out to the homes of the delegates. And then the faculty and delegates connected with each other. The faculty then set each of the delegates an agreed number of tasks. And in this case, it was 5 of each of our basic LapAR tasks and 5 of our general surgery tasks, because in this case, it was a general surgery course that they were doing. And they set all of those tasks for the trainees. And at the same time, to Conrad's point, they asked them on the fifth go of each of these to record and send a video for review. And so they did that as part of the pre-course. So this is an element of training that had never existed before for these practical courses. They also then utilized the system for remote proctoring of the actual course. So the trainees did all these tasks before the course started. And then on the days of the courses, all of the trainees logged in and they logged into Zoom. And then they were able to go through some proctored consultant expert-led simulations where the experts were actually operating on their simulator and live streaming that through Zoom. Now, that live stream functionality is something we utilize through Zoom at the moment and may well get incorporated into the platform itself in the future. But where it was really, really important was that it did allow those trainees to have the experts showing them, again, to Conrad's point, how do you actually perform this simulation to the best possible standards? What we also then did is we allowed the proctors to go into subgroups and work with their trainees to review the videos. So because all of the pre-course work had been done and the videos had been already shot, the faculty were able to review those videos in advance, do all of the time-stamped written feedback, and then in breakout sessions, they re-reviewed that with the feedback as they went. But you can also imagine that if you wanted to do this completely distanced without proctoring, there's also the ability to do that. What we also wanted to look at with our customer, and they were very keen to do this, was to utilize the LapAR to not only provide more training in the pre-course element, and also carry on delivering a practical course with proctors. But they also wanted to look at how does the implementation of proctored consultant expert-led training lead to an improvement in skill. So what we did at the end of the course is we asked all of the trainees to, again, repeat all of the tasks on their take-home simulator and record their final attempt and send that recorded final attempt again back to the trainers to review. And what that allowed the customer to show was that the use of LapAR had a benchmarks performance both with the objective data and the subjective video review. We introduced the proctored training, and then we re-benchmarked their skill. And what we're actually, anecdotally, we haven't actually gone into a really deep dive on the data, but what we're anecdotally seeing is that the repeated and long-term use of LapAR across these courses is resulting in improvement in skill, not only objectively in the data, but subjectively from the video review as well. So that's really, really exciting. So following this sort of pilot and use of this system, our customer has actually gone away and decided to rewrite their national training program to incorporate LapAR for the future. That includes when we are clear of COVID and back to cadaver-based labs, because they understand the importance of the pre-course work, the increased amount of practical skills we can train at scale, and the ability to actually show how much of a difference a program or a cadaver course makes to surgical skill and the trainee's performance. So I hope that that case study gives you a feel for some of the amazing ways that the LapAR can be used to help reskill during COVID, but also produce a scalable way of delivering surgical training well into the future. And it's at that point that I will say thank you very much for listening, and I would welcome any questions. And I'll bring my video back on and hope that the bandwidth manages to cope with that. Okay, so another question from Conrad. Thank you, Conrad, for this. So the question here for everyone is, are there evidence-based expected target times for performance of learners, or are learners measured against themselves? Another great question. Thank you, Conrad. So I mentioned when we were going through that at the moment you can benchmark your average score against all of the users in the platform, because we've got still a relatively small number of users and a relatively small number of data sets, given this has been going since July. But the answer to that is yes. As we get enough users, not only will we benchmark and so show that this is the score that you should get if you're an expert user, and how do you compare against the expert user, but we will show the average score you should be attaining for the number of years of surgical training that you're in. So that allows you to benchmark against the mean scores of different grades. And then, of course, you're able to benchmark against your own performance and see how your performance is changing over time. Any other questions? A question from Jane. Thank you very much, Jane. Oh yeah, I didn't get onto pricing, so thank you for that. I got carried away with talking about the functionality. So how does the pricing for use of the system compare to other lap VR systems? You mentioned an annual fee. Does the customer purchase the models individually? This is a lovely question. I'm going to ask it. Thank you. If we look at those three words at the bottom of all of our slides, the one in the middle we really take very seriously. And that is because in the UK and for the NHS, where, as we say, the development of this product has been funded by, there are limited financial resources. And so the answer to this is considerably less expensive. So I'll talk you through the pricing. And please forgive me, this is in pounds, and I'm well aware that we've got some of our distribution partners from across the US here. This is the pounds price in the UK. But effectively, we have for the institutional system, the LapAR Pro, there is a capital purchase of that of just £22,000, which, when you consider versus the incumbent VR systems, which are all £100,000 plus, is a fifth of the capital price. So not only is the capital much more affordable, and I have to caveat, we have not compromised on functionality. I will stand by the technology as having a more realistic feel and a better training experience than VR, because of the use of the instruments and the models. The question will be, well, how have you improved functionality and reduced the price massively? It helps having had financial backing to develop it from the NHS. We've taken a very contrarian approach. And as I say, it's the use of the models and real instruments, which means that we're able to take a lot of the cost out of the traditional VR systems. So the capital price is much more affordable, and the annual fee is a fixed annual fee, and this is £9,000. And you get four things as part of that. So you get a bank of 360 medical models, and those medical models, you don't have to decide what ratio of appendix to gallbladder to salpingectomy models you have. You can do a cool down of models once per month, and that's included in that price. And you can do that in the web app system that you've seen. So if 1 month you know that you need 20 appendix models and 10 gallbladders, then you can call that down. If it's the next month you need 20 salpingectomies and 5 vaginal vaults, then you can call that down. Once you get to 360 models, if you've used them all, once you get through that, then that's where you would need to buy extra models. And the models themselves are very reasonably priced. So they're between 20 and 25 pounds for a single unit. Also included in that annual fee, and Jane, I see that question, yeah, and I'll come on to that, thank you. Also included in that annual fee, along with the models, you get unlimited user licenses to give to people within your site or your institution. So the thinking behind that is so that when you buy a LapAR Pro system, we want you to be buying the take-home LapAR as well. And so that you can give the take-home LapAR to the trainees and they can take that away, but that you don't have to pay a license for each of them to access it. So when you buy the central hub system, you can then give out licenses to all your trainees and there is no extra fee for that. And it gives you all the functionality I've just shown you. There are a couple more things that you get with the annual fee. You get tech support. So we've gone away from this traditional model of servicing and charging you servicing fees when maybe something doesn't need servicing. So if there is a problem, we provide tech support. The majority of that is provided and can be resolved via Zoom. If there is a resolution that needs to be made that can't be made by Zoom, then we have a great network of on-the-ground engineers and experts, both across North America and Europe, who are able to attend and fix something. And if something does need fixing, you don't pay for it because you've paid your annual fee, and so it's up to us to fix that. So and hopefully that makes sense, but to summarize, there is the capital, which is 1/5 of the price of our VR competitors, and you have a very transparent fixed annual fee, which gets you 4 things: medical models, 360, unlimited user licenses and users. It gets you tech support, and it gets you effectively warranty cover or replacement parts if they are needed. Of course, the only fees on top of that you'd expect to see is the purchase of the take-home AR systems. They are £1,800. So you're getting a high fidelity system for £1,800. The closest rival to that is the more take-home versions of the VR systems, which have 0 haptics at 50 or 60,000. And then the other thing on top of that is the models. Jane, your question there of can a model be used more than one time? Again, a great question. Where we can make the models multiple use, we have. A good example of that is the, let me just come back here, is the vaginal vault model here on the right-hand side. That is a multi-use model because there's no dissection required. So it's just suturing. Eventually it will require a replacement, but that will get multiple uses out of it. The model on the left, the lap chole, because you have to dissect out the soft tissues, that is not multiple use and it is single use. About 80% of the models in the platform at the moment are single use. And then you have the multi-use ones. So a lot of people will say, well, I want to do really high volume training in a training center. This is where we encourage to say, don't buy one hub system or one LapAR Pro. If you were going to spend $120,000 or $150,000 on a VR system, the best bit is you can buy 5 of these systems from us, and that's 5 times 360 models with the annual fee every year. And that's the case study that we did here. This customer, they purchased 10 of the LapAR Pro, and then they purchased 50 of the take-homes. I think so that they can run effectively 2 courses at a time, 24 and 24. But because they have 10 hub system or pro systems, they get 3,600 models a year. So hopefully that's answered your question, Jane. I've got another question from one of our partners there from NASCO Healthcare. Thank you, Rush. The question here is, can we see an image of a surgical model? Rush, the best thing to do is it's on the screen here. The surgical model is what that instrument is holding on to. And it's on the screen with the vaginal vault, just with the digital overlay. I won't go through the rigmarole of pulling up another image, but if anyone would like to visit our website, you'll see some digital renders of them there. Another question from Jane here. Do we have any current US customers? Thank you, Jane. Yes, we do. I was telling them all off the top of my head. The first thing that's come to mind is PCOM, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. We've got plenty on the East Coast. We do a great deal of work with the large medical device and medical technology companies. So the likes of Cooper Surgical, Ethicon, Olympus, who I'm sure you've all seen in that web app, their name popping up. And of course, we have now a growing presence on the ground in the USA through our partnership with NASCO Healthcare and some other resellers. So yeah, that's certainly something we're growing, but we already have some very happy customers there. Oh, great, Jane. That's brilliant. It's Jane. I'll happily, if you want to drop me an email, Jane, I'll remember the names of the people that are there. And yeah, I'm sure they'd be happy to reference Innovus. I believe they have mainly our gynae simulators. Any other questions? I'll pull back to my contact details so that they're there. As I say, if anyone would like to gain some more information, I've already mentioned that we have an excellent partnership with NASCO Healthcare on the ground in the US. We also do provide direct sales and support there in the US. And as I say, if you would like a virtual demo or any other literature, then please do get in touch with me. I'd be happy to supply that and support any needs that anyone has. No problem. Thanks, Jane. So I'll happily stay on for a couple more minutes if anyone would like to ask any other questions. But otherwise, Olivia, I'm certainly all done with the information I've got.
Great, thanks, Elliot. I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes and see if anybody has anything, and then I'll close it down with the next like 3 or 4. If that works for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.